So we're moving into a time of embodied meditation together. I'd like to invite everyone, wherever you are, to just get a little bit more comfortable, wiggle around a bit, close your eyes if that feels good. Taking in a breath, fill your lungs with oxygen, feel your torso expand to the front, sides, back, and then let that breath go. Breathing in again, feeling the air come through your nose, filling the balloons of your lungs, and let your mouth open with a sigh. Maybe a sigh audible enough for your neighbors to hear. Exhale. And wherever you are, imagine your community or experience your community doing this with you. Breathing in, let your shoulders rise way up to your ears. Breathing out, let your shoulders drop down. Feel the invitation of your torso. Let your ribs be that resting place that your shoulder girdle literally falls on and rests onto. This is your body, your home. It's made of muscles, blood, and bones, in sickness and in health. This is where your spirit resides. This is where you live your life. This is where your world is made. This is the place where you bear witness to our earthly reality. This is your home. Your blood is like a river that flows over hills and mountains, through valleys and caverns, bringing life force and nourishment to your organs, muscles, and bones. Your bones are not brittle like dried twigs, but malleable. Like the green, live branches of trees, they coexist in a complex dance of support and structure, give and take. Never static, but stacking, sliding, pivoting, rotating, interlocking, responding to the synapses of movement indicated by your muscles and neurons firing. Our bodies are full of movement, each one a country, impacted by its unique imprint of identities and life happenings. Our bodies are unique, and yet they all carry us. Tall or short, young or old, injured or agile, able in whatever way. Our bodies are our homes. And from our embodied lived experiences, we are connected. We are connected by this very physical world around us and by our earthly reality, by the stones of our bones, rivers of our blood, the mud of our muscles, the grass and flowers of our personalities, blooming all around us. The sweet fragrance of poetry, spoken by lips or written by hands or fingers or thought in the clouds of our minds, we together co-experience and co-create the weather of our lives. It is in these bodies that we live, and all that we do is an extension of these bodies. All of life is an embodied experience from the first breath to the last. My prayer for our bodies is that we will love them, we will care for them, and that we will love one another. Take another breath now, breathing in, maybe putting a hand to your abdomen or chest, listening to this body, perhaps receiving a message today, one small thing that your body needs. It's easy to become distracted or forgetful of our embodied nature. Devices and duties can get in the way. When our world is unkind and our bodies are shamed or uncared for or endangered, natural stress responses show up as trauma responses that we've named. We've given names like fight, flight, freeze, or appease. These are responses that our body moves towards to protect us from harm. Just mentioning this might have encouraged your body to move towards a natural self-protective response. Take a breath and be present for what is for you today. Whatever your body is experiencing as you hear these words, however you are responding, take a moment. Take another breath, maybe wiggle around if that feels good. And pay attention to the messages, noting what you need. May we all move towards what we need, ask for what we need, and open to receive. Amen. And from wherever you are, whether you're at home over Zoom or whether you're in the sanctuary, opening your eyes. And I would like for everyone to just reorient to the space, look up to the sides, maybe take a glance behind you, maybe tap each leg back and forth, roll your shoulders. I'm going to tell us a story. If you like to close your eyes during stories, you could do that too. Or you can just stay present in the space with eyes open. This story is a traditional Mexican folk tale, and it was retold by Clarissa Pinkola Estes in her book, Women Who Run with the Wolves. It's called La Loba, or the Wolf Woman. There's an old woman who lives in a hidden place that everyone knows in their souls, but few have ever seen. As in the fairy tales of Eastern Europe, she seems to wait for lost or wandering people and seekers to come to her place. She is circumspect, often hairy, always fat, and especially wishes to evade most company. She is both a crower and a cackler, and generally having more animal sounds than human ones. I might say she lives among the rotten granite slopes in Tarahumara, Indian Territory, or that she is buried outside Phoenix near a well. Perhaps she will be seen traveling south to Monte Alban in a burnt-out car with the back window shot out, or maybe she would be spotted standing by the highway near El Paso, or riding shotgun with truckers to Morelia, Mexico, or walking to market above Oaxaca with strangely formed boughs of firewood on her back. She calls herself many names. La Huesera, bone woman. La Trapera, the gatherer. La Loba, wolf woman. The sole work of La Loba is collecting of bones. She collects and preserves, especially that which is in danger of being lost to the world. Her cave is filled with the bones of all manner of desert creatures, the deer, the rattlesnake, the crow, but her specialty is wolves. She creeps and crawls and sifts through the montañas, mountains, and arroyos, dry riverbeds, looking for wolf bones. And when she has assembled an entire skeleton, when the last bone is in place and the beautiful white sculpture of the creature is laid out before her, she sits by the fire and she thinks about what song she will sing. And when she is sure, she stands over the criatura, she raises her arms over it, and she sings out. And that is when the rib bones and the leg bones of the wolf begin to flesh out, and the creature becomes furred. La Loba sings some more, and more of the creature comes into being. Its tail curls upward, shaggy and strong, and La Loba sings more. And the wolf creature begins to breathe. And still La Loba sings so deeply that the floor of the desert shakes, and she sings and she sings, and the wolf opens its eyes and it leaps up and it runs away down the canyon. And somewhere in its running, whether by the speed of its running or by splashing its way into a river or by the way of a ray of sunlight or moonlight, hitting it right in the side, the wolf is suddenly transformed into a laughing woman who runs free toward the horizon. So remember, if you wander the desert and it is near sundown, you're perhaps a little bit lost and certainly tired, that you are lucky. For La Loba may take a liking to you and show you something of the soul. So, the story of La Loba, Clarissa Pinkola Estes included this in her book, and it's included in the title, Women Who Run with the Wolves, because of one of its meanings, that it can help us remember that wild essence of who we are as individuals, as people. And I always think of another meaning when I hear this story. I always think about something that someone told me after my father died. They said, and I always tear up when I think of this, now your job is to call all of who he was inside of you and live those memories. And something else that someone told me after my mother died, which is now your job is to learn how to have a relationship with her after her body is gone. How do we continue that relationship with those who have been in our lives physically in the present, and then their bodies aren't with us anymore? Perhaps they've been lost to death or a move. Perhaps our relationships have fallen away. But still, the relationship that we had or who they were meant something. And those bones of who they were, we can gather those together. And in so doing, keep something of that alive for ourselves. This is the story's medicine for me. What we remember matters. Who we remember matters. And also how we choose to remember them. It matters. It all matters. When we gather the bones of the past and we fit them together carefully and intentionally, we can breathe new life into what has gone before. And from this act or continued actions, like in the story of La Lopa, the wolves of our memories, if you will, can visit us and bring us medicine from the past with our loving intention. Ancestral remembrance exists in many cultures. Yes, we know the pagan or Celtic holiday of Samhain. We've probably heard of Mexican Dia de los Muertos or Day of the Dead. There's the Christian All Souls Day, the Japanese Oban Festival, and other holidays that honor ancestors. Many indigenous cultures have ancestral veneration woven into the routine rituals of daily life. But rather than thinking of this as something outside of or separate from modern culture or that it exists only within holidays, I think it's more true to say that ancestral remembrance is just part of every human experience, whether or not we're intentional or even think about it. Sharing stories from the past, remembering those who've gone before, whether it's history or our loved ones, and honoring those who we revere is part of what it means to be human. And I'd like to add, and I know it's probably on at least some of your minds, that while many cultures or many of us remember and celebrate ancestors, this doesn't mean that all ancestors are worthy of veneration or inspire our love or honoring. This is just a truth. People who've gone before us are people. They're people just like we are. And human beings have the power to do and be so many things: wise, loving, hurtful, and healing. The truth is, we're all a mix of these things. And I'm sure you can think of someone, either from your own life or a story or a movie, who's been either extremely good or extremely wicked. I'm sure we're all thinking about this right now as we near our presidential election and we're thinking, who will help us? Who won't? Yes? One example is the two witches from The Wizard of Oz. We talked about Wizard of Oz in a sermon recently, and there's the movie of the musical Wicked that's also coming up. Maybe you all have seen in pop culture. And that's the true history of Oz, told kind of in a midrashic style of the story about the story, from the perspective of Elphaba, who later becomes the Wicked Witch of the West. Sometimes what is seen as good or bad is not always as straightforward as it may seem. So I just invite us to hold this complexity, as I know we already are. In mythology and literature, archetypes are tools to show different examples and aspects of things that exist inside all of us. And most often, we're a combination of things. We all have smooth and some rough edges, part wise and wonderful, but we still have morning breath. We don't respond the best when we're stressed. We all have the capacity to do beautiful and terrible things. So this is why. This is why I believe it's important not only who and what we remember, but also how we remember the past. It can be helpful to celebrate what we'd like to emulate or be more like, as well as lovingly acknowledge what we hope not to repeat. I think our ancestors want us to have the freedom to do this. I think that this is part of being a loving human in the world. And just like our ancestors, we are all human and none of us will get life completely right. It's impossible. However, we can courageously keep trying as a human community to do the next right thing and to send compassion to the mistakes of the past as well, while holding on to our grateful memories to use as inspiration for the journey. So with all of this in mind, I'd like to invite you to bring someone to mind, or maybe multiple people to mind, who have gone before, someone who was powerfully loving or positive in your life, who made an important impression on you. This might be someone you knew or someone you never knew, that you never met in person. Could be someone famous for helping humanity, or someone less well known who you were close to. Close your eyes if you'd like, and let this person's face appear in your mind. And take a breath and ask yourself, in the spirit of La Lopa gathering the bones, singing the bones, what will help keep this person's loving memory alive? Just noticing this, keeping your eyes closed or opening them now again if you'd like. And the story of La Loba piecing together the bones is important. Carefully gathering and placing the bones of our memories is sacred work. However, it's the singing that brings the wolf to life. It's our soul song that brings forward the stories of the past and lifts them up to be the lamps for the future. And in so doing, as we remember, we actually co-create who we want to be. The act of remembering, the songs that we sing, the stories that we share, they all shape who we are and who we are becoming, who we are teaching our children to be. Our hearts are formed and informed by this sacred remembering. And as we sing songs to the past, we consciously bring the future into being. I'd like to add to our collection of ancestors the more than human world: trees, rivers, rocks, water, minerals, air, animals. All of these are part of our ancestry. The stones of the riverbed hold embodied memory of the footprints and paw prints gone before. The air we breathe was once breathed by many other creatures, beings, flora and fauna. We're all connected in a symbiotic web of existence that extends over time and ribbons pathways around the globe and throughout the galaxy. So let us sing our memories of riverbeds and rainstorms. Let us also remember to sing of ripe tomatoes and trickling streams. Let us sing our memories of hugs and acts of courage, of kindness and demands for justice. Let us sing our memories of playfulness and tenderness and righteousness. And let us also remember the sadness and grief that open our hearts, because these are signs of our love. Together today, we will gather the bones of the past by naming some names of those who we'd like to remember. We've already placed memories on the altars, either in our homes or the sanctuary or in the altars of our hearts. Now it's time to breathe life into these bones, to just name some names aloud. If there are any names of loved ones or great people from the past or even from mythology that are present for you, I'd like to invite you to speak these aloud into the sanctuary. And we're going to play around a little bit with Zoom if the folks on Zoom aren't too shy. You can write into the chat or you can unmute yourself on Zoom and also share names aloud. Oh, I'm getting a no from my host. No, we can't do that. Try it if you want, or maybe you can't. You can write them into the chat and I can speak them aloud if that's what we need to do. But let's begin speaking in the sanctuary, at least, and at home, in your own homes privately, names aloud of those who you are remembering with love. As you keep speaking in the sanctuary, I'm going to name the names in the chat: Duncan, Carew, TJ Feldman, John Peter Hunt, Moth, Kim, Camille, Michael, Mandelbaum, Kelly, Lola, Susan Folds, Ernestine, Ravina Marcus, Laura Montague Clar, Tomac Baksik, Donna Leonard, Martin Luther King Jr.,
Thank you all for sharing.
thank you all. And now we're going to continue into ritual time. You have a piece of paper and a colored pencil that you were given at the beginning of our time together. And you can reach for that now. If you need something to write with at home, you can grab that, or you can choose to write in the chat. As you're so moved, please write responses to these questions. You can write the names that you may have spoken aloud or others that are coming to mind now. Who am I called to cherish and remember? Who am I called to cherish and remember? Writing their names down. What can I do to keep this person's memory alive? How do I sing their memory into being in my own life? And or how does this person's loving memory inspire me to live my life? We'll just take another minute or two to write down our thoughts. Who am I called to cherish and remember? What can I do to keep this person's memory alive? How does this person's loving memory inspire me to live my life? One example from our chat is Granny Nigels, who inspired Clark and Sharon to love nature and those around her. I invite you all to share either in the chat or with one another after service what you wrote down. Maybe take a peek at each other's and share some of these loving memories together. Or keep them close and put them on your altar at home. Keep thinking about this in the coming weeks. We will now move together into song.